This
Hey, Mike, how you
conference
doing?
will now be recorded.
I
Doing
joined
well.
earlier. My Outlook must have been screwed up. I had the notice at 11 o'clock. I'm not sure if others had as well.
Yeah, I had to change that. That was just a one-time change. Unfortunately, I had a customer meeting out here in Seattle, and I couldn't get around it, and so I had to delay it for a couple hours. But it's only a one-time thing. Next time it'll be back at 11.
No worries.
Hey, I did the same thing, Jeff.
I'd like to have $1 for every time I've dialed into the conference call at the wrong time due to time zones and everything else. So
Yeah,
I'd be
same.
retired right now.
Well, I'd seen both meetings pop up on my schedule, and I was hoping that it was just kind of a synchronization issue with my Outlook. But I guess it was maybe a little more than that. Okay, well, great. So I guess we'll go ahead and dive in. Let me at least show in updates since the last meeting. So the chassis specification 1.0 that was released, I think, before our last meeting. But since then, we've actually had the chassis design files submitted as well. So this is everything required to create the chassis itself, the backplane assemblies, the power distribution. So it's the complete complete design package, including all the step files. And let me go down, and we do actually have the drawings and the step files for the sled as well. Right, so this will allow anybody to take this sled design and leverage that to create a sled that's compatible with the chassis. Okay. And let's see. So on top of that, we haven't had much in the way of any additional documentation submission at this point, but I think these 1.0 releases will set the foundation for the upcoming face-to-face meeting. I know this was discussed in the December meeting about holding something prior to the OCP summit, where we could basically do a walkthrough of the specifications, solicit feedback, get any sort of changes or modification suggestions made to the design itself. I know we had plans to follow that up at the OCP summit itself with a somewhat truncated follow-up meeting to see if there's any additional inputs or any additional suggested changes. And then, Bill, I think you were talking about wanting to try to release the 2.0 specification by no later than the end of April.
Well, I mean, I think that we should talk about that and figure out what makes sense. So,
Yeah, I know we were hoping for the kind of the big splash and to actually release the specification during the summit itself. I think the runway might be a little short for that. So, I think that we could at least release the 2.0 specification sometime between the end of March and early April. But I would say that's all really pending what kind of feedback, updates, and suggestions we get during the face-to-face and during the summit.
that's my concern, is that I don't have visibility like you do, but I think we want to do the right thing and make sure that there's alignment amongst the carriers, that it's the right it's the right specification.
Right. And I've actually along that line, I've been presenting this specification to all 4 tier ones in the U.S. 2 vendors or to service providers in Canada, and then basically the largest provider in Latin America. Right, and at each step, I've encouraged all of them to get involved in OCP. Encouraged all of them to to participate and help to refine this spec. And really, I mean, there's been a lot of interest in OCP, based on this open platform. But there's been very little very little suggestions on improvements to the design. Of course, that just looking at a PowerPoint presentation and seeing seeing the design on paper itself, you're not going to come up with a whole lot of tweaks and recommendations. The proof, I think, is really going to come when we begin to deploy it, people begin to use it, and then they come up with hey, wouldn't it be better if it could do this, or if it was this way? So we're in the process of doing that now. Just to let you know, this the 1.0 specification, what we currently have, that's currently commercially available, right? And I know that we're working on getting that at least the chassis into the OCP store, into the into the marketplace, right? But we are deploying this to a number of our customers as well, and in a trial capacity.
And Mike and Bill, I've kind of presented a few slides in my customer presentations as well, and it seems to be, oh, that's good, that's great. No major feedback on shelf management or size, shape, and whatnot. So they're all kind of nodding their heads. But I think, as Mike is saying, I think once you touch it, feel it, see it, is where a lot of the feedback would come back.
Mm-hmm. Right. So that's why for the so we are going to have a face-to-face workshop, and I know, Jeff, you had you had volunteered to have this during your sales conference in San Jose, and I definitely appreciate that offer. But the time and the scope ended up a lot better that we just did it at our own Nokia facility in Mountain View.
Yeah, that's fine. I saw that it's in early February, so that's fine.
Right. So it'll be February 11th from 10 to 4. I have a tentative agenda drawn out. I'm not a slave to it at this point, but it was just a suggestion to try to at least get discussions going where we would have some, just some sort of initial introductions at the beginning of the meeting. I would probably give, the same, I would say, depending on who shows up. If there are some people there that aren't familiar with openEDGE and, the chassis design and the server design, I would, kind of present the same presentation that I've done several times up to this point, just to bring everybody up to speed. And then we would step through, more of a detailed review of the, of the specifications, and solicit feedback and and suggestions for improvement, and then close out by 4. I do plan on bringing some hardware there, so that'll be a good thing. So on top of just being able to look at design documentation and some PowerPoint slides, we'll actually have some working hardware there that we'll be able to take a closer look at.
So, Mike, on a product like this, who actually delivers the product to the carrier for installation? Is it through service providers, or is there? I'm just trying to understand the supply chain, and is there somebody missing from this meeting or missing from this collaboration that's key to that supply chain?
Let me think about that question.
So let me just try to clarify. So Nokia or AD-Link has a product, and or Ericsson or whoever has a product, and when it goes out to the carriers, it could come direct from you, or it could come through a third-party company that's installing software onto it, or
Mm-hmm.
providing installation services, or managing their wireless cell tech. I mean, they could have other contracts in place that actually does the fulfillment of this function. And it's really a question is and I'm bringing this up because when you talk to the carriers, and they don't come out and say, hey, this is you should change this feature or do this or do that with it. It kind of raises a yellow flag, like, do you got the right audience there? And are we missing the boat on something?
Yeah. As far as this is, it is a Nokia product, right? What we've released, the 1.0 specification.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're working through our, component suppliers and our contract manufacturers to build and, deliver to Nokia, this product. And then, from that point, we're actually selling it to the customers, right? And sometimes it's, just a bare metal solution. Sometimes it has, our cloud stack on top of it, or some of our VNFs or containers on top of it. But, and at this point, we're not really going through any reselling, resellers at this time. But I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to you want to make sure that the net is cast wide enough that we're that people are taking a close look at this design, and that there aren't any holes, or we aren't missing any opportunities to improve.
So, Bill,
Yeah.
we intend, as a OCP solution provider, we offer a soup to nuts system, including the data center components with our open rack system, as well as the openEDGE, and we're prepared to deliver that whole solution. Now, we're also, it's available for purchase, and if if another solution provider would like to participate, we welcome that, and obviously we welcome having, by releasing the chassis as a specification that's an accepted specification. Anyone's happy, they can happily build their own, but we're happy to work with anyone in that supply chain function as well. The servers and the things that plug into the chassis, on the other hand, is actually where I believe we'll start seeing innovation and differentiation, not necessarily the chassis piece. So, for instance, we're on 1 and 2 years.
Let me ask you this: is there, when it comes to edge hardware, is there a set of incumbent suppliers or competitors that could become collaborators on this?
Well, from my standpoint, and again, I'm not I'm essentially a product architect at this point, and I'm not looking wide at what competition is doing, but I believe this is a very unique system specifically for edge usage. Now, you can use any server as an edge solution, provided your tower location happens to be close enough to something where you could put a regular, you could use any computer, whether it's like rack mount computer, a blade system, an OCP rack system. Right? But when you then start looking at moving from, say, a trial or a big gapped 5G system, and you start actually having to fill in those gaps, this is a unique device that allows you to build those smaller edge sites. And Jeff would probably have a good view on this, and probably Mike as well, in terms of other products in the market. But I'm not aware of any that actually have these same kinds of capabilities.
Yeah, I'm not really aware of any other platform that has similar capabilities as well. I mean, I know that there's been some servers that have been positioned for the edge, but most of those have been based on lower capacity processors and are really meant more for IoT types of applications, right? So I haven't really seen anything that's quite like this yet. And I do want to echo what Craig had said earlier. The chassis itself, I don't see that changing a whole lot, other than perhaps to specify variable heights, right? Maybe 3U won't work for everybody. Maybe we need a 5U or a 7U, or maybe a 2U, even depending on the various deployment scenarios. But the key to it is really to, I think, get other equipment manufacturers to buy into this form factor and create an all-around ecosystem that is going to be attractive, right? So that's not so that's going to be different compute options. Maybe some sort of storage array option. Integrating switches or routers or optics. Something kind of items along that line. And I think that's where Nokia, that's where we realize we can't do it all. And to create a solution that's really going to have some legs to it, we need to get a variety of different hardware options proposed and developed.
And the key on that too, Bill, I think for us from an AD-Link standpoint, just as Mike and folks are saying, is that we would look at the sled level, whether it's an FPGA, maybe it's a switch from Broadcom, an FPGA from Xilinx, maybe it's a NVIDIA baseboard, maybe it's an Intel AI baseboard. What we would like to do is work with Nokia, work with the customer base. We all go in and really push for this OCP-based form factor, and we can be that manufacturer of those sleds and those cards, and Nokia would be that last mile delivery mechanism, or it could be Hive, it could be Avnet, it could be specific integrators, but really, having a large portfolio of different sleds, I think is the right way to go, and not just an x86, typical CPU sled. I think it would, the value chain is really around a bunch of others as well.
Yeah. By the way, I completely aligned with you there. Where I'm headed with these questions is that somehow we have to kind of overcome this perception that it's a proprietary architecture, and by the way, I think we face this with OpenRack, and Microsoft is facing this today with with Olympus and
yeah.
And you and I, Jeff, kind of lived through that with the OpenRack CG, right? 19.
Well, Bill, where I think you guys could help from an OCP level is, I think one of the things that happened with the OCP-CG, if we were to look at the lessons learned, there was really one kind of telco and one vendor that was driving that ecosystem. And once that service provider kind of stepped back and said, no, we're not, it's too early, or no, we're not going to do this, then it became kind of a proprietary based environment with only a handful of, you know, suppliers in that OCP-CG. I think where you guys could really help is, how do we get the service providers to really embrace this program and embrace this product and have them drive, you know, the ecosystem as well. So, I mean, you have a lot of suppliers from an OCP standpoint, but all the suppliers are really trying to drive it into the, you know, this particular one would be, you know, the carriers. So, you know, Crown Castle could be even a customer. It could be American Tower could be a customer, Verizon, AT&T, Telefonica, and the list goes on and on. But how can we as an OCP organization really help drive, you know, the technology and communicate it, and you know, to gain more acceptance? Because I think that was kind of the hard part with OCP-CG, is all the carriers kind of stepped back and said, well, we'll see what happens, but nothing really happened.
No, you're right, and you know, you keep inviting them. You know, we keep inviting them to the party, but it doesn't mean that you know
they're going to come and buy stuff, right?
and, you know, I mean, you know, we actually have, you know, one of our keynotes is talking about collaboration. You know, and it's going to be delivered by AT&T, but it's you know, it talks about the need for the carriers to, you know, collaborate, and you know, it's a call to action from AT&T to all the carriers to say, hey, you know, get on board with this open source hardware, right, and come to the party. And you know, I totally agree with you. But at the same time, you know, when they look at a solution, you know, if you had you know, several different people, you know, that said, hey, I subscribe to that architecture, it kind of lowers the risk level for them to get on board, and makes it easier. And that's really my question is there, you know, we can, you know, we can certainly, you know, try to convince, you know, folks like Huawei and others that are the supplier side, you know, to get on board with this. But is there somebody, and I mean, and they'll make their own decisions like you guys are doing, but you know, is there other companies like Crown Castle, like Digital Bridge, like Schneider or Vertig, or that are, you know, that are kind of out there that have a big impact on deployment of edge solutions, that, you know, we could somehow, that we ought to be, you know, convincing to be part of this effort.
Yep. And another point too would be some of the cross-pollination that we can do with, you know, like Crano, ONF, ONAP, you know, getting some of the Linux Foundation open architectures to validate a lot of the software on this type of architecture. Use OCP as a model and as a test bed for those environments, and provide hardware, you know, I wouldn't say for free, but, you know, we all need to make money, but, you know, use those avenues as well, because those are driven by the carriers. You know, those are really ONAP, ONF, and Crano, and a lot of these others are really driven by the operators. So having them test this open architecture for software on open architecture hardware would just be, I would say, millions.
You know,
That was my next question: is what, you know, what organizations are the key partnership organizations? So you mentioned ONF. You know, is there a specific project in ONF that we should target, or work activity?
They are looking for hardware partners to be placed into specific labs to do testing. We've been approached a few times to do that. Akraino's the same way, and some of those labs are actually in the carriers' labs and the foundry offices or the CTO offices. Crown Castle, even Schneider, you know, we've been engaged with those guys to see if we could get into their labs because they're kind of expanding their footprint for their capital expenditures into the operators themselves, so we could utilize them. So I think that would be the broader spectrum, and then into the carriers themselves.
Okay. Is there a path to acquire hardware for that? So Mike, how would how would they get hardware to do this? So if we went to Crown Castle, or let's go to use Schneider because they're a platinum member.
Platinum member.
If we said, hey Schneider, you guys ought to be looking at this as your hardware platform for Edge, how would they acquire that hardware for development?
Well, right now, I mean, since it's not out in the, it's not available in the marketplace yet, you basically come to me. And, even though I'm not in a sales role, I would connect them with somebody in sales, depending on, what the vertical is. And then, they could, do up a quote, and we could execute the sale. But then, as far as them developing their own, the specifications are there, they're available. If you wanted to go, bend some metal and create your own chassis, that capability is already, sitting out on the wiki.
So, Bill, could you help me with what would you see Schneider doing in this particular case?
Well,
what do you see them developing? Because at that point, it maybe becomes a business development thing of, here's some hardware for them, at least in this point, like Mike said, until we get, we want to get the chassis accepted as soon as possible so that people can have the design files and can start doing things with that. But what would you see them doing?
Well, I guess I'm thinking that folks like Digital Bridge or Crown Castle or Schneider are delivering solutions, and so they would work with Nokia or AD-Link to provide the hardware, to provide this particular ingredient, but it would be part of a larger solution that involves facilities, site development, radio towers, real estate acquisition, things like that.
Okay.
Right.
Well,
I don't see any need to enable them to go build another edge box, right? I mean, we don't need more suppliers. We just need more channels to deliver the ones we have. Right?
Well,
More doctors.
Okay, so for instance, in my mind, the way this kind of plays out is one it goes kind of like this: that we have multiple carriers, not necessarily in the U.S., that have made statements like, next year, 2019, we will need 100,000 of these units to be deployed in our network.
Yep.
So when that talk becomes an RFP or an RFI, that's when people like Schneider become very interested, because now they've got something. Oh, okay, this is 100,000 sites that needs to be deployed to, and even for Nokia, it's kind of like be the case where 100,000 is a lot of sites. You know, you're going to deploy a couple of small units in 100,000 locations, but that's still on the scale of, you know, a large data center is just not in one location. So once those things hit the street and they're saying, hey, I want to use this edge box, how can you do this? That kind of brings everybody to the table, which is kind of what I see happen with OpenRack. And and you still have some competition in OpenRack. I mean, we've had Decathlete from day one, and now we've got Olympus, but we still have a large installed base of OpenRack.
Right. And so looking at OpenRack, it took, there was a lot of people, a lot of customers, a lot of adopters that kind of sat on the sideline and said, hey, is this really going to be an architecture that's, kind of goes beyond Facebook? And, can I get it? Can I buy it from somebody, and particularly buy it from someone who's my supplier? And then, am I getting myself locked into, some special or proprietary design? And it took years to, kind of overcome that, that concern. And now there's, plenty of suppliers that build OpenRack product. And so we don't have that concern today. So I'm thinking about this openEDGE architecture and saying, how do we kind of get through that phase as quickly as possible so that when an RFQ comes out, that that there's no reservations in using this openEDGE architecture.
Right. We just don't want to take 10 years to get there like we did with OpenRack.
Right. Yeah.
And
So
to be honest,
we have that experience from OpenRack, and we have experience from CG19, and so we have to kind of learn from that and say, is there what would is there anything we should be doing differently here?
well, the thing, we're still developing OCP OpenRack products for telcos, right? We've got, and we're getting, more and more of these servers and more of these racks and racks of servers and switches, JBODs deployed in telcos, but it has taken some amount of effort to get product that is acceptable for the telcos to use.
Yep.
And that's kind of that's what we're this time around. We're going, well, we understand a little bit about, radio units and where radio units are going. And that's why this is, this is our best shot at, we've listened to the customers. We've tried to design something that would be useful for them to get us to the point where we're out of V2 of saying, okay, we've deployed this now. These things would help. This is the pain points. Here's what we need. But then that to be driven by the customers at that point.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, I'm just throwing out different ideas on how do we, accelerate this process, and one is make sure we get the right specification, and two is how do we accelerate the adoption of it. So,
right.
I mean, I think this is a good conversation to have. We haven't, said, oh, there's a big pit hole, big pit hole that is in front of us. We're going to land it if we don't be careful. We're saying we're kind of doing the right things and just stay the course, which is good. So you mentioned, partnering with organizations like ONF, and I'm on board with that. We actually had a call with OpenStack, and we're looking. And by the way, we would have a similar conversation with ONF, but I just happened to have the call yesterday with OpenStack. And trying to look for opportunities to, work with them on, co-development or align different projects. And they have their summit in April, and they're looking at opportunities to, do some type of demo, and they're still searching for what that would look like. And obviously, Edge, there's focus on Edge by everybody, including OpenStack. And so there may be an opportunity to propose something to OpenStack to, do some type of hosted demo.
Okay. Well, I mean, that sounds promising, and that sounds. You said it's in the April timeframe. Is that the one that's in Denver?
I think it is. Yeah.
Okay.
So, Bill,
Yeah.
but we have two solutions. Um, Basically, one is a little more radio focused, and the other is the ETSI NFV focused. But both of those use OpenStack, and we have been involved in OpenStack and have actually contributed, a couple of different projects in OpenStack in order to support these. So if you were to buy from your OCP solution provider Nokia a total solution for this, it would include OpenStack as the clustering system or the cloud system, whatever you want to call, for these edge boxes, and for the OCP racks as well.
No, I
mean, we're not.
I know that, Craig. That's why I brought up OpenStack.
Yeah, we're with the OpenStack for sure.
Yeah, no, I think you do. Don't you also run some, containerization on this as well?
Yes, we do. Yeah, we do. I mean, as part of our OpenStack platform, we do also support containers.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's all OpenStack still from a control standpoint.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why I brought it up, is that I think that there's they're promoting OpenStack and their containerization solution, and I think they have they're promoting or looking at some edge related things. So I'm just saying is that may be an opportunity to kind of try to push or make this more visible, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I mean, we pretty much have in place, the edge hardware and the I mean, we got the whole VIM in place. I mean, we've got a Queens-based OpenStack distribution. To me, the question would be more of what type of applications would we be interested in running on top of this? If we were to do some sort of demo for OpenStack. And I guess but I'm not expecting an answer right now, certainly, but I think to me that's really it. The hardware and the host operating system. That's the easy part as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and just for a reference point, the system that we had at the regional summit, that was running OpenStack, with what managed all of those servers. And I think that's kind of what Mike's saying is that, you know, it's not as important necessarily how you control the servers, but what applications do you then exploit on top of that infrastructure, both hardware and software, obviously.
And
right.
from an edge,
What kind of complete solution is going to get the most interest?
exactly, it's that killer app that's low latency, the edge. That's what's really driving it, and hopefully they would run on this hardware and OpenStack software or whatever, a Crano, whatever it to be. But it's really that killer app that gets the attention. And say, hey, you can do this killer app on openEDGE in a, you know, at the radio site with less than 10 milliseconds delay latency, and then showcase that killer app. That's the key part.
So are you guys using as part of this? Are you using Starling X?
Are we using Starling X? I would have to get back to you on that. I know I've heard it thrown around at a few meetings, but I don't know if that's something we're leveraging or not.
Okay.
But let me take it to find out where we stand on that.
Well, again, I'm just thinking about how do we raise the visibility and generate interest among the carriers, which, you know, you're kind of saying the same thing that we see, is that they're all interested, but they're all sitting on the sideline and, you know, kind of waiting, right?
So, Bill, I mean, Mike,
go ahead.
Yeah, would the reference architecture / white paper from Verizon be using openEDGE in addition to the OpenRack solutions?
It most certainly could for the, you know, for the, I guess, for the edge and far edge solutions. Yeah, I mean, openEDGE would certainly be an option. But you know, Craig pretty much nailed it earlier when he talked about RFPs being released, right? I mean, there's a rush by the service providers right now to figure out how they're going to deploy, you know, to the edge and to the far edge. And so the RFPs, you know, we've been responding to RFIs for, you know, well over a year now, but now the RFPs are starting to come in. And so, you know, Bill, I think the interest is there, and, you know, Nokia is certainly responding with openEDGE, but I kind of wonder what, you know, could be done from the Open Compute project to basically, you know, I'm not trying to make it so that OCP is supporting Nokia in our RFP responses. I'm not trying to imply that, but, you know, maybe some way of saying that this is an open platform. This is, you know, something that's open to multiple vendors, and is something that, you know, is going to grow into an ecosystem that is going to be, you know, viable for the edge. You know, we're saying it, right? I mean, Nokia is certainly saying it in all of our RFP responses, but it would be good to start to hear it from more than just Nokia.
No, I absolutely agree, and that should be our action. And so, you know, how do we do that? Well, we do it through, you know, the creation of white papers and the distribution of those and the promotion of those, through, you know, case studies, through proof points, through, you know, collaborative efforts with, you know, these other organizations, you know, through our summits.
And that's one thing that I would, you know, it may be well, I don't know if it's too late or not, but, you know, one of the things I would love to see at the OCP summit would be yet another equipment vendor, you know, at least one equipment vendor signing on to openEDGE and committing to develop, you know, some sort of hardware for openEDGE. You know, something like that would start to let, our customers know, that the telcos know that this isn't just a Nokia thing, that this is something that's going to be available for everyone.
Yeah. No, I mean, I talked to I talked to you guys about that in the regional summit, that if we had a multi-vendor, multi-supplier, platform, that we could then use as a demo or case study or something, at the global summit, that we could, do something there. And I don't know what we would do, but but somehow try to incorporate that into the messaging.
Right. I mean, because honestly, if we're not getting other equipment vendors involved, why is Nokia even doing this? Right. I mean, that's the whole reason it's being done, is to get other people involved, other equipment vendors involved.
Well, the first part is, get a spec out there, and then we can start pointing people to it.
Right.
And that's, I mean, honestly, we don't, without the collateral, it's hard for us to. It's hard, we don't have presentation material, we don't have collateral, we don't have white papers. So, you got to kind of arm us with that, and then we'll do the best we can to promote that.
I know, and we're getting there, right? It's maybe I want to move a little.
Right, I'm not making up excuses. We're kind of in this chicken and egg thing, and all trying to move forward as quickly as we can. So.
Right, and I think I want to run before I walk, right? I mean, that's what it is, right? I mean, we've got to go through this face to face. We've got to get the 2.0 version, reviewed and released, and and then I think that's where the work really starts to solicit and get wider adoption.
Yeah, but I'm thinking it's the 1.0, Mike. I mean, we really need to get the chassis and all of the design files for the chassis out of the drafts and into an accepted document, so that others can start taking it serious. That it's not just things that we're talking about, but here's the tangible proof. Look at the specs, look at the design files, and because they're accepted by the OCP, that gives people the confidence to go look at them, and there's not going to be any repercussions on
that's
looking
a good
at that.
point, Greg, is that we release the 1.0, and you say, hey, all the collateral's there, go look at it, and by the way, we're doing an update to 2.0, and let us know what needs to change, right? And hopefully there's not a lot of change there, but at least you've got the 1.0 release out, and you can go, and you got tangible data, you can, and drawings and things you can get your hands on, right, to look at it. And maybe this is where we then say,
and all that's out right now.
Now we got to hold off on go actually see some beta testing and some, proof points to prove out that it's okay, right? There's not some fundamental flaw in the architecture that was overlooked.
Right.
I think you're right. Get the 1.0 out and start promoting that, and just tell people right up front, hey, we're working on the 2.0 release package, right? The spec.
Right. Well, I mean, that's
so. Craig, are you saying that we want to go for OCP accepted on the 1.0 spec?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's we should look at the timing, but I think we should have the meeting, the workshop, right? So we can, again, well, here's one more thing. It's an in-person meeting rather than the teleconference, and then submit it to the IC and continue to push. The way that you do the work is you come to this sub-project meeting and we discuss it. This is where 2.0 is born. So yeah, I mean, I think as soon as the
Okay.
I would like to present the chassis at the IC meeting following February 11th. I think that would give us plenty of time to have some changes, incorporate any changes that we found there. And I mean, really, the only thing we found so far is some slight labeling issues in a PowerPoint. You know, it didn't change the spec in any way. It was just a matter of, oh yeah, I got my labels backwards. Sorry.
Right, right.
So
The server was labeled one way and the chassis was labeled the other. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's not been any, there's not been any feedback really. I mean, other than they looked at it and caught that kind of, you almost want to, call it a spelling mistake or a grammar mistake if it were just a document.
Okay. Well, I do like that approach. We basically use the February 11th workshop to review and finalize the 1.0 spec, but also sort of which we would submit to the IC for full accepted, but then also lay the foundation for the 2.0 specification that would follow on sometime afterwards. And that actually sort of maybe takes the pressure off of us to get a 2.0 specification out quickly. We could look at doing that at a future date when we have a chance to get the hardware more widely distributed, widely used, and and get it better, get more hands-on use of it.
Right. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I like that approach. Okay. All right. Well, anything else? It's funny with these calls. I start out the meeting not thinking we're going to have a whole lot to talk about, and consistently we've managed to use up almost the entire hour every time. So that's encouraging. I like that.
Okay, so Mike, as a follow-up, would you like me to connect you with the OpenStack folks?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I know Nokia plans on having a presence there, but yeah, if you could get me connected with them, I can also get them connected with our CloudStack guys, and we can work on, seeing what kind of, killer demo we'd want to put together for this summit.
Well, our goal is to, connect with with OpenStack and with ONF or OPNFV and do the, joint demos of, where you're using open source software components running on, open hardware specs. And and so that works really well for, just keynotes and demos and stuff with the open source software groups, right? Because then they're hosting it on OCP hardware, and then to the degree that we can demonstrate, multi-vendor interoperability on the hardware, then we add that back into our workshops and our summits and keynotes.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
I want to be sensitive to our community and show that, that we do have, interoperability and collaboration going on. So, I'm a little hesitant to do a Nokia only product, so to speak, but at least for the OCP shows, but for the collaboration with ONF or OpenStack or others, absolutely okay with that.
Right. No, I think a multi-vendor environment would be even better because it bringing, Nokia's, hardware with Nokia's CloudStack and Nokia's, applications, that doesn't really send a message of, collaboration, right? I mean, I'd much rather have, Nokia's hardware with somebody else's cloud stack and somebody else's applications on top of it,
Yeah.
just to show, that level of interoperability.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
And I think
Well, if there's,
we'll be able to demonstrate at the summit. I know some of the talk I'm hearing from our side is demonstrating hardware interoperability with other OCP participants. So some of the networking stuff, that kind of thing. We would really like to have other servers and hardware capabilities, but actually utilizing the mezzanines and the different things from other vendors in kind of unique ways is I'm sure is going to be present at our booth anyway, and there's some talks about it as well. It's not entirely out of the the scope of what we're planning with this for the summit.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
And Bill, if you can think of other things that we might could do between now and the summit, that would be welcome as well.
Okay. Yeah. Is there, by the way, is there anything, don't, if you can't answer that, that's fine, but is there anything going on with AT&T in this openEDGE platform? Or specifically ONF and AT&T?
Well, you can at least go on to the crano.org and see that both AT&T and Nokia, are I guess platinum members of that organization.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that. Okay.
So without saying anything, I'm saying something.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, Mike, I'll set you up with a.
Yeah,
I'll follow up with OpenStack.
right. And by the way, along the lines of a Crano, anything that AT&T does, people are going to look at, right? And I've actually heard back from several other service providers, asking about our Crano participation, and is it something that's really going to succeed or not? What are the advantages of it? And so, if we were to get involved or try to get some sort of closer value collaboration with the Crano, that probably wouldn't be a bad thing, because I think there's definitely a lot of interest in it, and a lot of people kind of sitting back and seeing if it's something that's really going to fly. All right. Well, with that, let me go ahead and bring this to a conclusion. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Much appreciated. And we'll meet again soon.
And Mike and Craig, I'm here to help you guys out during the summit. So if you want some ecosystem partners to help participate, we can maybe demo something as well. So just let me know.
Okay. Appreciate that, Jeff. Yeah, let's talk about that over the next month or so.
Sure.
Okay, because it'll be here before you know it, right?
I know. Okay, well, thank you, guys.
Okay.
It's a good session.
Right.
Hey,
Okay, have a good evening. Afternoon.